Even though people die every year attempting to reach the summit of the famed Mount Everest, climbers are showing no signs of slowing down. The government of Nepal has issued a record number of permits to people all over the world, but there's growing concern about overcrowding on the slopes and inexperienced companies popping up just to get a piece of the profit. Joining us from Ottawa to share her thoughts on this is Sandra Leduc, who summited the mountain back in 2012. Sandra, why is this? First of all, why did you decide to climb it? I know it's almost a religious experience for many people once they do it.
You're right. I dreamed of climbing it since I was a teenager. I never actually thought I'd be able to do it. It was one of those things like going to the moon. But then I went to base camp in 2000. No one was climbing the mountain at the time. There was probably 1 or 2 teams that were there just waiting for a summit window. And I met a woman who was about to climb it, and that just cinched it at that moment. It made it real. It made it something that I could actually do. And then I started from 2000 onwards. I started preparing to climb it.
What is it like now? Why are so many people climbing? And I gather just a few weeks ago they found someone who was climbing without a permit. It sounds like kind of a free-for-all in some cases.
Well, it's interesting because as much as you have a lot of negative publicity with respect to what's happening with the mountain, the overcrowding, the heaps of trash, that publicity draws more and more people. So people just see it as one of these incredible life-changing experiences. They hear about it and then they feel that it's more of a possibility. 20 years ago, you didn't have any media interest in Everest on a yearly basis. And now now more and more people are talking about it. So more and more people want to climb it.
It's not cheap. You can't just go and you're not in Banff, right?
Yeah, no, it's not cheap. And that says something about the people that are climbing it. It costs, I mean, you can get away with climbing it for less, but all told with equipment and plane tickets, most companies will charge you in total about $100,000.
And we're looking at some of the numbers here. 373 permits have been issued to foreign climbers, and the cost, $30,000 to $90,000, and it can go higher than that. Just big picture-wise, what concerns you about the growing popularity?
There's a lot of concerns, and the other thing to add to the growing popularity and the mix is climate change. So the weather conditions on Everest are changing, and some would say deteriorating, which means that there's less summit windows in a year, in any given year, that you can climb the mountain. So the year in 2012 that I was on, there was only 4 days where you could actually contemplate a summit. And this year is similar to 2012. When I climbed it, it was the second deadliest season because the weather conditions were so difficult and people rushed to the summit because they had so few days as a possibility to summit. And it's happening again this year. The weather conditions are atrocious. I have a couple of friends right now that are attempting the summit, and they're writing that the winds at the summit are 100 kilometers an hour. So all of that conspires to mean that people are rushing to the summit in very difficult conditions.
Very, very quickly, one piece of advice, if you had to. I want to climb Mount Everest. What would you say to someone very briefly?
Climb everything else first. Make sure that you know what you're doing before you get on Everest. You need to be on autopilot when you get to a mountain like that.
Good advice, Everest climber Sandra Leduc. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.